Welcome back to the University of Life. Today's discussion question is hands down, easily the most commonly asked question in the world, and probably the universe, and probably since the beginning of time. That said, it usually gets so little mileage. Like, there's so much more we could get from it. So here's the question, and then we'll talk about it. I'll tell you some stories, and hopefully you'll share some of your stories too in the comments. Here's today's question. So, you good? How are you? So, even though this is like such a common question, usually it just means hello. Hi, how are you? Fine, thank you. And you? Fine, thank you. And you? And it usually just means hello, not a lot more to it. We're going to go into some depth and answer this question a little better. One of the really good values we can get out of this discussion, I think, is to think about the people in your life. I hope you have some. And what would be even cooler is I hope you are one of these people who, when they ask how you are, they actually mean it. They really want to know. They care, they are interested, and they demonstrate it somehow. So here's one of the examples for me. This is my stepmom, Carol. Once, after spending a summer in San Francisco, it was a week before school started, my friend Robert called up and he's like, hey, you want to go to Canada? I'm like, okay. So we went up there and mountain biked and over the Continental Divide and kayaked across from Canada into the United States and rappelled off this Cameron Falls at Waterton. Cold water, but it was a fantastic time. But as I went to leave, I went to say goodbye to Carol, and she stopped. She said, what's wrong? And I said, nothing. And she's like, no, really, what's wrong? And I said, nah, I guess I'm just used to it. Because she really cared, you know? She's one of those people in my life that I'll always remember that actually cared. And that made a difference for me. And so I'm really grateful to her. Rest in peace. And she showed it by actually asking and following up. And so this next week, while I was up in Canada, you know, having this beautiful time, like biking into British Columbia from Alberta, saw a big moose, throwing little rocks at it, trying to get it moved so I could get a good picture. Sorry, I was stupid, I was younger. Don't do that, they'll come and trample you maybe. I thought about what she said, because after I said, I guess I'm just used to it, she looked at me and said, don't get used to it. And that was the beginning of oh my gosh, way too long trek to rooting out all my fears and wounds and bad perceptions which did not serve me well in my life and all. That was the beginning of that journey. And it got started because someone was there, the kind of person for me who would say, how are you? And would mean it. So a follow-up question time. Do you ever do that for people? Like, do you really care? Are you interested in them? How do you show it? Do they know it? Do you have any idea how rewarding that can be to be that kind of person? I mean, maybe you have a sense of like how great it is when you find someone who's that awesome for you and you really appreciate them, but be that kind of person. And one of the best ways, I think the best way to be that person, to show it, and for people to actually get it and understand it and know you really care, is to do exactly what Carol did for me. Ask questions. And then when someone gives you an answer, ask follow-up questions. Show you're interested in them. I have another friend, Chris. He's so good at this. A salesperson came by his house last night from Czechoslovakia. She's like selling magazines or something for the summer job. She's got a few more weeks before she goes home, so she's gonna go hit Moab and Zion and everything. And it was his birthday, and they invited her, like, stay for my birthday dinner, and asking questions, and she just got this bike, and it had a slow leak, and so he fixed it for her, and he's like, come back next Sunday, because I didn't get to ask you enough questions. Like, he's really interested in people, and was genuine and sincere, and just a top-notch person. Like, I esteem him highly. So I suggest do that. And if that's hard for you, you're like, well, what do I ask and stuff? I actually made something for you a week ago. and I've been meaning to do this forever because I had one of these. I bought one of these like 20 years ago, and I loved it so much. It's a book of questions. It's like 101 questions in here, and then followed by follow-up questions. And this one, The Road of Life, is just kind of like how life works, how curious are you about other people's opinions? Oh, look, we flipped right to page 40 there. Something we were just talking about. And then follow-up questions. What's something you learned from or about someone else recently? How did you come to find out? What type of person do you find most interesting? Why? Okay, so just tons of questions. What do you regret? How do you influence others? What makes relationships succeed? How do you make the world a better place? Or I think that's the previous page, and this one's how do you make the world a better place? It happens. So less than $5, less than $1 actually for the Kindle version. Find that on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. And I also made another one. This one, the questions are all about like identity and you. Know thyself. So again, 101 questions. How much do others' opinions of you influence your behavior? How confident are you? Which life experiences most shape your self-image? In what ways? And so on with follow-up questions. So I had a book kind of like this years ago. I had these great friends, great people, but they'd always kind of talk about the same thing, and I got restless. So I had this book, and I'd break it out with all these theoretical questions, and it just made it more fun conversations. I actually got to know them better, and that's the rich experience of life that I like so much better. Okay, let's move on to the next possible meaning we can derive from this question. Are you good? Okay, whenever you hear the word good or bad, you can know automatically this is a value judgment. You're assessing something on its goodness or badness. And to do this, to make judgments, you have to use a measuring stick. So good in what way? Like I've got this truck, right? Is it good? Well, actually, yeah. I really like this truck. It's bigger than I like. I'd rather be driving a zippy little Honda, but I needed something that would tow a few thousand pounds up hills. So it's diesel. It gets 25 miles per gallon. It's pretty new. It's nice. There was a fire in the back before I bought it, so I got a big discount. But so I saved some money on it, but there's still a few things to fix. I don't know. Based on all those measuring sticks, I think it's good, except for the size one. Look at this weather. Is this good weather? A lot of people would say no. They'd be like, this is bad weather. It's raining. But you know what? Oh, it's so beautiful, and it's refreshing, and it's in August, and we need some rain and all. So I think it's good weather. So when someone asks you like, are you good? Well, based on what measuring stick? Usually what they mean, of course, is are you well? In Chinese, or at least in Cantonese, to say, instead of like ni hao in Mandarin, they say, have you eaten? Because if you have food, then you're well. But this question of are you good is a whole other interesting thing we can dive into for just a minute. So what are the common measuring sticks? Probably the two most common ones these days, historically the most common, like are you a good person? It probably comes down to some generally accepted, like agreed upon criteria, like are you kind, are you thoughtful, or are you a selfish jerk? Do you make the world a better place? Do you contribute, or whatever? And in general, are you a loving person? If you understand what love is, that it looks at someone, it sees the good in them, it wants their well-being, and is willing to actually exert yourself a little bit to invest to help them have well-being. So if you're that kind of person, then I think that is probably the most common measuring stick, and I think it's probably the most valid one of being a good person. Now, I mentioned there's two most common ones, measuring sticks, and the second one is kind of the same thing, but on a much more limited scale. It's tribal. It's like, hey, I'm here for my family, and everybody else can suck it. I don't care about them. I have to defend my family. And a lot of times family, of course, is not just your spouse and children or parents and siblings, but these days it's like the people who have the same political beliefs as you. And so a lot of people, and this is a big problem, if you do this, think about it, reconsider. What they do is like, these are our group values, and if you're talking about politics especially, it's like somebody just made up this list of them, and then everyone kind of has to follow that. I got a political science minor in college, one of my 6 minors. I always thought that was ridiculous. Like, you should be able to choose more a la carte. Not only what you think is ideal that we should be voting for and spending our tax dollars on and which laws to enforce and all, but how to implement them. Because almost everybody is like, hey, I'm for everyone's well-being. Yeah, but some people want to spend money here and there, and some people say, oh, this is evil and that's stupid. So as you can have whatever political beliefs you are. That's up to you. I hope you actually think through them and consider alternatives and best ways to implement and all. But the minute that you like take your value just because it's on somebody's platform, on economic and foreign policy and social issues and everything, and when someone disagrees with you, you're like, I'm gonna blow your effing head off. You're a bad person by those other measuring stick. You're trying to hurt people, and it's not so much for your ideology. Be honest. It's not because well, I think we shouldn't let immigrants into our country unless they go through the process. Okay, that's a reasonable belief. That's great. But if you're like, and anyone who disagrees with me, I want to throw a brick through their front window. Is that really your value? I don't think so. So, it's raining all over my camera. I'm gonna throw it in my truck again. But those are the main ideas that I had thought of in advance for this question. How are you? Are you good? So I hope you got something out of it. I would love to hear your comments. You know what I'd love even more? I would love to hear your stories. I want to hear about those people who ask you how you are and care about it. I want to hear what difference it makes. I want to hear how much you enjoy being that kind of person. And let's promote let's promote goodness. Just be good and help everyone else be good and see the good in them and help promote that. And let's ask questions and show we care and help people reason through things and learn how much fun it is and all that. So, hey, thanks for listening to this. Thanks for your responses. Thank you for taking the time to click a little thumbs up button there. Subscribe if there's going to be a lot more of this. I'm excited for it. I love having these conversations. I was talking with someone on the phone last night and we're like, we should be recording this. This is so cool. So I'd love to bring you in as part of that. And until next time, just live smart, live happy, be your best self, live your best life, get the most out of this thing, because we don't have a lot of time here. But there's so much beauty to enjoy, so much goodness and badness to deal with as well. So see you next time.